What's up, Boiler Nation? It's JT Boiler here again with your Week 2 preview for the SIU versus Purdue game. We're going to go over everything you need to know for this game, whether it's information about SIU, information we learned about Purdue from last week, all the way down to the keys to victory for Purdue and my score prediction. Let's jump right into it. As we start to look at this game, this is an exciting one we've got coming up. It is a night game in Ross-Ade, which is always an electric environment. We've got a 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. And this is a game that both teams are coming in with some momentum. Purdue is 1-0 with their 31-0 victory over Ball State. And Southern Illinois is also 1-0 coming off of a 49-3 victory over D2 school Thomas More, where they were up so much they rested their starters the entire second half. So both teams should be confident and ready to go for this matchup. Purdue is 1-0 all time against Southern Illinois. They played them back in 2013 when Danny Etling was the quarterback and won there. They also are 14-0 all time against FCS schools, so history is on their side here. That being said, this SIU team might be one of the better FCS schools they've ever played. One of the reasons I say SIU might be one of the best FCS teams they've ever played is because they are ranked number 20 overall, so they are a really solid squad with a shot to make the playoffs. And a lot of times Purdue just plays Indiana State or someone who hasn't really been in a competitive state like that when they play FCS team. So this is a little bit different. This is a confident, competitive team that's coming into Ross-Ade. And I think one of the major highlights of their squad is a really modern offense. They run a lot of quarterback run game, a lot of RPO, a lot of swinging it out quick to the running backs or wide receivers and getting them out in space. And so Purdue's going to have to tackle really well to handle this offense. And they're once again going to be tested with a pretty solid senior quarterback in DJ Williams. Williams played 3 games last year for Southern Illinois before getting hurt, and he had 2 really good ones. Against BYU, he had 120 plus yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And then against Incarnate Word, he had 300 yards passing, 79 yards rushing, and 3 total TDs. So he had a really good first year, but then got hurt. Last game, in just the first half, he had 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, showing all of his kind of skills. So he is definitely someone who is confident, competitive, knows what he's doing within that system that Purdue will have to keep tabs on. And I think is kind of the major X factor for Southern Illinois. Now on defense, they are a solid defensive unit. They are going to play pretty similarly to how Ball State did, I think. They have a 4-2-5 alignment, which is very similar to what Ball State did. Last week, though, against Thomas More, they played amazing. They forced 5 total turnovers with 2 interceptions and 3 forced fumbles. The major person I think we should keep an eye on is Donnie Wingate, the senior defensive end. He just transferred in, was a all-conference player before at his last school, is coming in, and he had a great game last game, notching a sack, and then also 1.5 tackles for loss. So he's definitely a guy to keep an eye out for. On the defense side of the ball, he's number 9. For Purdue, when we look at last week, some of the big things that stand out to me: 0 turnovers, only 4 penalties. Last year, when we look at the start, even against Indiana State, when they won soundly, they had 11 penalties in that game versus 4 in the first game of this season. So obviously much more disciplined, and I think that's going to be a key for Purdue being successful this year, is just being able to not beat themselves, which did a great start of against Ball State. Now, as we look at what they need to do in this upcoming game, I think in that first game, passing game went really well, right? Ryan Brown threw to 7 different receivers. Armand Branch, Michael Jackson III had great games as well. But I think what Purdue needs to do really is establish the inside run. When they got things going last game, it was all of the outside of the tackles and with those kind of left tackle, right tackle runs. The inside was kind of a struggle for them. And I think against a smaller FCS opponent, being able to get momentum and start to use that interior running game is going to be really good for building confidence, putting some more things on film for USC to have to look at, and things like that on offense. On defense, I would love to see Purdue force their first turnover. They played really solid overall against Ball State. They missed some tackles, but overall were pretty solid and pressured the quarterback really well, which I was questioning before game 1. And so I think the biggest thing now is, can they be opportunistic? Can they find a way to force a turnover? Now, against Ball State, they didn't really throw the ball downfield. They really played it pretty safe, so it's kind of tough to do that. But I think SIU might come out and swing the ball around a little more, so we'll see if they can force a turnover. I do think against this team, the D-line is going to dominate. We saw 4 sacks and 7.5 tackles for loss against Ball State. That's only going to be worse this game, I'm assuming. So, or better, I guess, depending on which side you're on. And so I do think the D-line will be dominating. You saw a lot of people play. I think we're going to see the same thing. I think we're going to see a lot of different players with tackles for loss and sacks and things like that against SIU. Next up, I've got my 3 keys to victory for Purdue against Ball State. And number 1 is just going to be establishing the run. I was a little disappointed with Purdue's rushing output last game, being held under 100 yards. And I would like to see overall just more running. I said establishing the interior run game is going to be really important for the offense overall. I'd also like to see Ryan Brown use his legs a little bit more. Now, obviously, you're going to take what the defense gives you. I think last game they were kind of daring Purdue to throw, but I'd like to see them establish the run, be dominant against a lesser opponent, and really use their physicality to their advantage in this game too. Second one is going to be discipline on defense. Like I said earlier, SIU is going to swing the ball around. Lots of screens, misdirections, plays to the outside, runs, quarterback run, all kinds of stuff that can get you off balance. And I think if you aren't tackling soundly and you don't have a lot of discipline with your eyes and watching where the ball really is, they can break some big ones on you. And we saw Ball State do that, highlighted by Elijah Jackson's 37-yard catch, right? So there are certain things that defenses can do to get you off balance. I think Purdue needs to stay disciplined with their eyes and actually make really good tackles. If they don't do that, SIU might break some off on them. The very last one is obvious, win the turnover battle. And they didn't do that last game, so I've carried it over to this game, right? Last game, there were 0 turnovers overall. I would love to see Purdue maintain their 0 turnovers on offense, but also add 1 or 2 on defense would be huge for momentum and also just building something special on defense. My final score prediction for this game is going to be Purdue 48 to SIU 10. Now, I know we shut out Ball State last week, but eventually somebody's going to score on Purdue, and I do think SIU will be the first one to do that this season. Whether it's just a drive or two, I think they'll have success at some point, or maybe against the second unit once they come in the second half. Things like that might end up allowing them to get some points. But overall, I do think Purdue's going to dominate, especially along the lines of scrimmage. The athletes you get at O-line and D-line at a Big Ten level are just going to be completely different than what you see at an FCS level. As long as Purdue can tackle and keep guys in front of them, it's going to be really hard for SIU to score. And I think, as we saw last week, Purdue is pretty competent at just executing their base offense. And so I think that'll allow them to score a lot of points themselves and hopefully run the ball pretty well this week. So there you have it. There is my Purdue SIU game preview here for week 2. Hopefully the Boilers end up 2-0 and I'm correct on this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. What is your predicted score for this game? If you like this, make sure you hit it with a like, subscribe, stuff like that. I will see you all later. Boiler up.